Hey, my name is Harry Targ. I'm in the Department of Political Science, and I teach foreign policy and international relations and labor studies and Central American, U.S. Central American relations.
I saw your books. Okay. What was your favorite one to write? And why?
Oh, writing books is a little more like work.
Yes.
But the big blue one was a book I wrote on U.S. foreign policy, largely from the end of World War II to the mid-1980s. And then in the 1990s, I wrote a book on Nicaragua after visiting there, and a book on Cuba after visiting there. And so all three of them I enjoyed, and I enjoyed the experience of working on them. In the case of Cuba and Nicaragua, going and seeing those places myself.
Yeah. Do you believe empathy is kind of the first step in kind of understanding? If you understand people's issues, that kind of leads to more peace. Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand certain cultures, and that kind of makes them hate unnecessarily.
That's a good point. I think one of the things that we all face is overcoming stereotypes, the narrowness of our own backgrounds, and that's common. And it's not just Americans. It's in the Peace Studies class, I either show a whole film or excerpts from a film called Faces of the Enemy, and it was produced by a psychologist who studied images of enemies. And the first part, the part that I show every semester, shows images, cartoons, say U.S. cartoons of what Germans were perceived to be, World War I and World War II, or Vietnamese. And then Vietnamese or Germans' characterization of Americans. And you see that there's ugliness on all sides, and the stereotypes are pretty much the same, whichever side is doing it. And so there are those kind of elements. I think some people are more narrowly some kind of cultures are more narrowly chauvinistic than others, but all cultures have to some degree that kind of chauvinism, and it needs to be overcome. I think it's possible to be proud of one's own heritage, but not in a comparative way. You know, I'm better than them. You know, I'm proud of what I am, where I come from, but it doesn't have to mean that I demean others. So empathy is, I think it is important. And I think that's one of the really neat parts about, say, going to college. And Purdue, even Purdue, is a little more diverse than it used to be when I started. And that's kind of, I would assume it's really a neat thing for students to sort of be exposed to people from all different places.
I was also wondering if you believe war is an ongoing process.
Well, it's an ongoing process, but I don't believe it's inevitable.
Okay.
What I find very discouraging is discourse, people in higher positions, not just military spokespersons, but civilian politicians as well, who talk about planning for the next war. I think they're trying to psych us up. for accepting war as a perpetual reality, and that's not necessarily the case. But if the American people are led to believe that wars are inevitable, it increases the likelihood that they will accept their country's going to war. So
Yeah.
it's not inevitable. And I sometimes say in a peace studies class that how we measure various aspects of social behavior very much constructs our narratives. If you take a slice of a 1,000-year period of time, some of the data would say that, well, there's only been 150 or 200 years when there hasn't been war, okay? So you can come away with the feeling that war is inevitable. But if you do different kind of counting, count all the interactions you and I have on a daily basis with people, 99.9% of them are cooperative interactions. And so society is a mix both of conflict and cooperation. And, you know, wars stand out, wars are celebrated. We celebrate war heroes, we don't celebrate peace heroes. But so reflecting on history about the incidence of war and its inevitability is complicated. And the narratives that are accepted are socially constructed, so that, you know, if you want to justify war, you'll say, well, yeah, human beings are always engaged in violence with each other. That's not necessarily the case.
So, if we want this cycle to end, like, how do you think we can achieve peace? What do you think peace means to you, also?
Okay, in reference, remember those concepts I talked about, direct violence and structural violence.
Yeah.
The obverse of direct violence is the end to war, or what some people call negative peace. So the question is, how do you end war? The obverse of structural violence is what some people call positive peace, that is, elimination of inequalities and social injustice. I think there's a connection between end to direct violence, people wanting to kill each other, and social injustice. So from my point of view, we need to build social movements that are demanding justice, are demanding real democratization, are demanding a reduction in economic inequalities. And part of me is optimistic about all the social movements that we see, read about, that are occurring all around. One thing after another needs to be challenged. So we're not at the point of eliminating structural violence, but we're pushing back. You know, there's some reason for being optimistic. And when you look around the world, there's various kind of movements rising up all different places. And from my point of view, that's where change is going to come from the social movements, and from the grassroots.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're going to take a picture of my messy room?